The movie begins with Abigail, a young ballet dancer, who keeps dancing even though only her shadow watches her on the stage. Outside, a gang of kidnappers is ready to act. As Abigail leaves the theater, the driver is unaware of the GPS device planted to track her. With their target in sight, the kidnappers break into her home, disable the security system, and even have a sniper ready to eliminate anyone in their way. When the three kidnappers enter Abigail's room, they are shocked to find that the target is just a little girl. Once they capture Abigail, the kidnappers come out of hiding. In a desperate situation, Abigail stabs one of the kidnappers with a pencil, which engages him and leads to threats of violence. But his female accomplice stops him from retaliating. As Abigail is subdued and placed in a bag, one of the kidnappers on lookout sees her father has returned. Upon hearing this, the three kidnappers try to escape. However, the security system hinders their escape, causing panic. Luckily, the hacker in the team manages to open the gate, allowing them to get out safely. During their journey, they check Abigail's pulse, which is weakening due to the sedative. After passing a traffic camera, they reach a luxurious house and meet a man named Lambert, the mastermind behind the kidnapping. Abigail is held with her hands cuffed and her eyes covered. While Abigail is unconscious, Lambert warns the kidnappers to keep their identities secret. They are instructed to take care of Abigail until the ransom is paid, and Lambert does not reveal her father's real name or background. Lambert takes their phones to prevent police tracking. While waiting for the ransom, the six kidnappers relax at a bar. One of the kidnappers, a woman named Joy, prefers candy over alcohol. Joy claims she can guess the backgrounds of her fellow kidnappers just by their body language. Frank, one of the kidnappers, challenges Joy and bets $100 on her guess. The others also become interested and place the same bet if Joy's guesses are correct. All of Joy's guesses turn out to be accurate, making everyone laugh. Frank is a former cop, Peter is a hired thug. Sammy is a rich girl seeking adventure. Dawn is a former military sniper who operates in the shadows. And lastly, Dean is the driver with a troubled past. Frank then competes with Joy, suggesting that Joy is a recovering addict, as shown by her obsession with candy. A little later, Joy attends to Abigail, who is waking up from the sedative, complaining about pain in her hand. Moved, Joy frees Abigail from her restraints and blindfold after covering her own face with a mask. Abigail starts crying and Joy comforts her, promising not to hurt her and explaining they only want ransom money for Joy's living expenses. They share stories, with Joy trying to ease the tension by mentioning she has a child the same age as Abigail. Abigail tells Joy about her loneliness because her father is always busy with work. Before Joy leaves the room, Abigail gives a mysterious signal, apologizing if anything happens to Joy. Worried, Joy tries to find out more about Abigail's father from Frank, but gets no answers. Soon after, Frank discovers Abigail without her blindfold. Frank insists that Abigail should not remember his face. Pointing a gun at Abigail, Frank demands to know if she recognizes him. After Abigail swears she doesn't recognize his face, Frank demands information about her father. Abigail reveals her father's name is Christoph Lazar. Frank becomes anxious, realizing he is in trouble dealing with this girl. Joy and Dawn, familiar with Lazar, share horrifying stories, intensifying everyone's fears. Despite this, they agree to stick to their plan. Dean suggests leaving immediately after getting the ransom money. They stay alert, ensuring none of Lazar's men intervene. Joy finds a library with a statue of a father and daughter. She then leaves the library and runs into Dawn. Dawn proposes an alliance, expressing his distrust of the others. In another room, Sammy finds a TV, but is interrupted by Dean, who makes her angry despite his attempt to kiss her, which she rejects. Dean finds Peter asleep and pranks him by drawing on his face. Afterward, Dean explores a dark corridor and finds a painting depicting a house and a little girl resembling Abigail. In the basement kitchen, Dean is attacked by something terrifying, and Sammy hears his panicked screams. At first thinking Dean is joking, Sammy is shocked to see his head separated from his body, which makes her nauseous and prompts her to call the others. When Sammy is accused of being the culprit, Frank defends her, saying she couldn't possibly have the strength to do that. This incident reminds them of 3 murderers who were previously caught by the police in a hotel room, the 20th floor. The next morning, the 3 murderers were found dead with their heads severed and their organs missing. They believe the killer is Valdez, Lazar's right-hand man. They decide to check on Abigail, who is still lying on the bed, while Dawn prepares to leave, realizing they are dealing with Valdez. However, the exit is tightly secured with iron bars, stopping their escape. When Peter tries to break down the door, the security system activates, sealing the access with steel plates, making Joy certain they've been trapped. Dawn goes to check on his sniper, but it's missing. Joy asks Abigail if she saw anything, maybe someone else entering her room besides Joy and Frank. Abigail reveals her fear of Frank, saying that she recognizes him as Valdez. Dawn is shocked to hear from Joy that Frank's real name is Valdez. Dawn is unsure about Abigail's claim. However, they decide to capture Frank to verify the truth. At that moment, Joy calls out to Dawn, who is behind her, but he doesn't respond, making Joy approach him. It turns out Dawn is already dead with a severe neck wound. Joy is convinced that Frank is Valdez and tells the others of her suspicion. She blames Frank for the deaths of Dawn and Dean, accusing him of the murders. But Frank points his gun at Joy, saying that Abigail has been lying to her, causing confusion among everyone. Frank forces Peter to decide whether to kill Abigail. Peter follows Frank's order to enter the room and kill Abigail, but Joy stops him. Frank then demands Joy to stop protecting Abigail. In the midst of this situation, Sammy is confused about whom to support. While the argument continues, Abigail easily frees herself and starts dancing on the bed. Abigail reveals that she is a vampire and then attacks Peter. However, Frank quickly shoots Abigail. Moments later, Abigail gets back up, healing her wound quickly, causing them to flee in shock. Joy suspects that Abigail is Valdez. They are trapped in a room with no way out. Meanwhile, Sammy prepares to use garlic in an attempt to fight the vampire. Joy worries that killing Abigail might anger Lazar, but they proceed without Joy's help. However, Abigail is not in the room. They hear music and find Abigail dancing with Dean's body. Sammy attacks, but Abigail easily deflects her. Abigail then demonstrates that garlic has no effect on her by smelling it. Frank and Peter also try to fight her, but Abigail defeats them effortlessly. Abigail even stabs Peter with his own necklace. Seeing an opportunity, Frank tries to attack from behind, but fails, and Abigail turns to attack him instead. They all retreat. Joy tends to Frank's wounds and suggests using sedatives instead of violence. They decide to split up but stay connected through their communication devices. Sammy is startled by a bat and falls into a pool of bodies that doesn't smell because they might have been preserved with chemicals. Meanwhile, Peter encounters Abigail and then runs away. Abigail chases him while dancing. Suddenly, Frank opens a door, causing Peter to fall down. As a result, Abigail starts chasing Frank and pins him down after he falls. Hearing the commotion caused by Abigail, Joy arrives to sedate Abigail but fails. Sammy saves Frank after climbing out of the pool of bodies. But Sammy gets bitten by Abigail and releases her grip. Abigail smiles and attacks Frank, lifting him as if to drop him from a height. Soon after, Peter rescues Frank by tackling Abigail after waking up from being knocked out. As Peter struggles to hold Abigail, Joy seizes the opportunity to sedate her. However, Sammy worries about the bite and wonders if she turned into a vampire. Everyone is unsure how to respond. Later, Joy meets with the now captive Abigail. Joy asks Abigail how to escape from this place and promises to free her if she tells them. Instead, Abigail reveals she is the mastermind behind the plan and that Lambert is her assistant. Abigail even knows everyone's real names and backgrounds, causing them to exchange glances as she exposes their identities. Sammy began her criminal career by stealing money from her wealthy parents' accounts, and her parents' work is connected to Abigail's father's business. Peter, known as a thug, once accidentally stole money from one of Lazar's businesses. Frank is a former detective who once captured 3 of Lazar's men. However, before they could be interrogated, Abigail killed them in a hotel room on the 20th floor, revealing herself as Valdez. Joy, a former army medic, was discharged because of her drug addiction. Due to her addiction, Joy also had to leave her son and work as an illegal doctor for criminals. While operating on a criminal with a gunshot wound, Joy accidentally caused his death. This criminal was an important figure in Lazar's business. Their past crimes were all connected to Abigail's father's business. They realized that Abigail wanted to kill her father's enemies to gain his affection. Joy, as a mother, advised Abigail that killing her father's enemies would not make him love her. Abigail seemed surprised to hear this. However, she stuck to her plan and offered to free 2 people if she was let out of her cage. When Frank threatened to kill her, Abigail changed her offer to freeing just 1 person. Peter then pointed his gun at the others, but Joy quickly shot him to incapacitate him. They agreed not to release Abigail and assigned Frank to guard her while Peter was treated. When no one else was around, Frank offered to free Abigail if she told him how to leave the place. Abigail agreed and said there was a red book in the library with a button that would open a secret door. After she revealed this, Frank did not free Abigail, making her furious. She broke the bars and started dancing in front of him. Hearing the commotion, Joy rushed in and found Abigail frayed. Joy then broke the window coverings to let the sunlight in. This worked, causing Abigail's hand to disintegrate in the sunlight, forcing her to retreat into the shadows. Realizing that Abigail's hand could regenerate, they decided to flee to the library and stay in the sunlight. Sammy, who had been bitten by Abigail, put her hand in the sunlight and was relieved when nothing happened, meaning she had not turned into a vampire. Frank pulled the red book as Abigail instructed, but no door opened, making him angry because he felt tricked. Joy tried to break down a wall, but stopped because she ran out of energy, making her anxious about the situation. Shortly after, Sammy had an idea to find the house's power source to disable the security system and open all the covers, though it was uncertain if it would work. As they split up, Abigail played music and possessed Sammy, who then attacked Peter, killing and eating him. When Joy and Frank arrived, they saw Sammy dancing in sync with Abigail, who was in another room. They quickly fled to the library. Sammy chased them there, following Abigail's orders, who mentioned that the room was where her father often punished her. As Sammy was about to attack, Joy used a shiny tray to reflect sunlight onto Sammy, causing her to disintegrate and be unable to recover. Then a secret door suddenly opened, and they suspected that the room inside might contain another trap. After a moment's thought, they decided to check it out. Inside, they found a control room displaying a map of the house and its security system. Suddenly, Lambert, who was also a vampire, appeared, choking Joy while telling Frank that Abigail turned him into a vampire to be her servant, with his family held hostage. Lambert confessed that he suggested Abigail kidnap them to eliminate Lazar's enemies, while he actually had a plan to gather them together to help him get rid of Abigail and her father. His ultimate goal was to take over Lazar's business. To fight against Abigail and Lazar, Lambert offered to turn Frank into a vampire. With no other choice, Frank accepted the offer. Lambert then bit him. Additionally, Frank was asked to drink Lambert's blood to maximize his strength. During this, Joy watched as Frank transformed into a vampire. To test Frank's loyalty, Lambert ordered him to eliminate Joy. Unexpectedly, Frank stabbed Lambert in the heart, causing Lambert to disintegrate beyond recovery. Frank enjoyed his new powers, but then Abigail entered the control room to attack him. Frank easily defended against Abigail's attack. Not only that, he also drank a lot of Abigail's blood. Joy took this opportunity to grab her phone and deactivate the security system. When they tried to leave, the door was locked. Frank had just finished drinking Abigail's blood, leaving her very weak and in need of a blood donor. With nowhere to go, Joy called her son and left a heartfelt voicemail before Frank approached and threw her, opening the library door. Frank threw Joy roughly. In a choking state, Joy fell from the upper floor. Unexpectedly, Abigail saved her. Cornered, Abigail asked Joy for help to fight Frank, whose strength was much greater, promising to free her so she could reunite with her son. Realizing that siding with Abigail was more beneficial, Joy agreed to help her against Frank. Unfortunately, Frank's strength was still far greater than both of them. Frank stabbed Joy in the shoulder to immobilize her, allowing him to drink Abigail's blood without interruption. Though Abigail reached out her pinky, reminding Joy of her promise, Joy could do nothing, pinned to the wall by a spear. After Abigail became weak, Frank pulled Joy off the spear and forced her to become a vampire. When Frank ordered Joy to stab Abigail in the heart, Joy instead attacked Frank, making Abigail feel greatly indebted to her. Joy managed to distract Frank, allowing a now recovered Abigail to attack him. A fierce battle ensued between them. When Frank fell, Joy used the spear, and together with Abigail, they pierced Frank's heart, causing him to explode. Afterwards, Joy worried because she was now a vampire. Abigail explained that Joy had returned to being human because Frank, who infected her, was dead. Keeping her promise, Abigail freed Joy so she could reunite with her son. Unexpectedly, Lazar, Abigail's father, appeared and introduced himself with various names he had used throughout the centuries. When Lazar tried to prey on Joy, Abigail stopped him, saying that Joy had helped her when her father was absent. Lazar thanked Joy by kissing her hand and allowed her to leave. Joy then quickly got into her car. Before leaving, Joy found a spare piece of candy in her other pocket, and then she drove away from the house, ending the film.